Hi, everyone. A lot of you have already seen and even made a version of the Alaina Serger tote pattern. And on it, there is a center panel that I think is just great. I use it as sort of a blank slate. And on the first ones that I made, I did all serger stitching on it with cover stitching, chain stitching, using my thread fusion device. What a surprise. And I love the way they look. But then on my latest versions, I decided to change it up a little bit. And along with the serger decorative stitching on that panel, I decided to add windows. I'll just show you one that I have right here. Now I have a couple of windows on this side. Let me flip it around and show you the other side as well. And when I had these at a show recently, people were asking about the windows technique. How do you do it? And are there any special instructions on it? Well, the good news is it's a very simple technique, but it's a really cool one for highlighting reverse appliques. I thought the most efficient way to show how to do this would be with a video tutorial. So go ahead and take a look. If you have any thoughts on it, drop me a line, and I'd love to see any of your samples that you make using this technique. The pattern calls for the center panel to be cut 7.5 inches wide. However, the first time I did windows on the center panel, what I found was that with 3 windows and possibly 2, that the 7.5 inches after the window was stitched and the reverse applique was stitched into it, that it skewed the side edge and brought it in, and it didn't even meet that 7.5 inch dimension anymore. So rather than cut down the size of that and have it be a little bit off as far as the finished dimension of the bag went, I decided to redo it, and it was a good lesson. So what I've done is now, if I'm going to do windows on this, I will cut the center panel 10 inches wide and a little bit longer than the 13.5 inches in the pattern. And what I do, though, to make sure that the placement of my windows is accurate, is I chalk in the 7.5 inch width of that panel. And if you measure from where the top band is attached and the bottom band is attached, you will see that the dimension of the center panel is about 9 to 9.5 inches long. So I have created that finished dimension with the chalked in lines because I want to make sure that when I place my windows, that number one, they're not too close to the side edges because those are going to be flat locked to the side panels. But also, I don't want them to be caught under the top or bottom panel either. And I want them to be fully visible. And the placement of those is certainly up to you. But I do like to make sure that they are within the rectangle that I've drawn. And you can see the fabric is, if you look at it, it's the exact same fabric as the center panel will be. And these windows are just really facings. That's all they are. I've drawn my circles on them, which are my stitching lines. And I have found that whether you use circles, squares, rectangles, triangles, I find that I get the best looking finished product with simple shapes. I think it gives you a cleaner look, and it doesn't skew off, but you can use any one that you want that suits your design sense. So I am going to stitch around these with a 2 to 2.5 stitch length. I'm going to cut inside the stitching line right through all of the layers, and the center panel is already interfaced. I like that to be reinforced so that I get a really nice finish on this whole thing. My circles are all stitched, and I'm going to cut through all of the layers, the facing, the panel fabric, as well as the interfacing. And I suggest having a pair of nice sharp scissors to do this because you'll always get a cleaner cut. It's much easier. I'm going to leave probably kind of a generous 1/8 inch seam allowance on the inside as I trim around these and then do my clipping. My circles are all clipped on both, and you can see that the edges are all clipped also. So I will turn these to the wrong side, get them all tucked in. I'll go over to the iron, give these a press, and I have my windows all pressed. Let me show it to you from the wrong side. Here are the facings on the wrong side. And I just pinned them in place to keep the facing from flapping around and getting in my way when I'm experimenting with my appliques. And if you've taken my decorative stitch class, you've heard me say that everything boils down to testing when you want to get a good result. And you want to test your thread, the color, all of that stuff, stitch length, and all your machine settings. But when you get a sample that looks great, but you're just using it as a test, save it. Don't toss it, because then you can use it as a reverse applique on various other projects. And that's exactly what I did with this piece. I was playing around with a wide cover stitch and chain stitching next to it. And then I wove this trim through the wide cover stitch. And I liked it, but I was just playing around with it. So I saved it. It's a big, long piece. And now I can put this in back of one of the windows and use it as an applique. So it's already done. I don't have to play around with that. And if this wasn't the color that I was looking for to go in that project, I can go into my bag, and I have it off to the side here, and find something else that might go. Let me just pull out something. Oh, this was an offcut from another project, which is kind of pretty. But I could do something like this if this was more of the color scheme that I was looking for. And this is flat locking with two 12-weight threads in the lower looper. I could do something like that. But by saving all of these samples, I've got ready-made reverse appliques ready to go. And I can find something that will blend and look nice in that project. I even have this one. This is really kind of pretty. It's on a batik. Just to show you some of these things. I did this just as a finished edge applique. I don't know why I did that, but I did. However, look at that. It's all done. So all I would do is stitch around about 1/8 of an inch from the finished edge of the window to hold that in place. And I would probably trim away some of this excess facing fabric. I don't want to trim it too close, but trim some of it away just to cut down the bulk in that. But that's really all there is to the windows. And then the next thing that I would do is, after all of my stitching is complete, then I would redraw these lines just to be sure that there is no skewing in on those. Make sure that they are 7.5 inches wide and the designated length as well. And then cut the panel to the designated dimensions in the cutting instructions. And then I would use it as the center panel and just go forward with the construction of the Alaina Tote. Thanks for joining me for the Alaina Tote tutorial. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below and I'll get back to you quickly. Happy sewing and serging.